Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Nick Kendall, who is founding partner at The Garage, which is an early stage investment company offering both brand advice and money. He also is a founding partner of Electric Glue, which is a media independent. So if there's more and more data, but not necessarily more and more insight, what do you think we should do to manage all this data?
As a practitioner, I was trying to think, how do I do it? And I don't think these are particularly clever or anything. They're kind of common sense. But I'll try and illustrate three things I think I do. I find myself, one, thinking long, much more. I think we're so trapped in the now. I think one of the things all this data has created is kind of almost instantaneous reaction times. Everything is now, and that's really dangerous. And so I find, just because I am from Manchester and I have to take the opposite point of view, I like to hear what's happened over 10 years in a market, not last week. I like to think, how are your consumers changed over 10 years or something? Show me some of the profile over 10 years, not, you know, in the search profile in the last, I think that long perspective. So people talk a lot about short and long-term effects, but if you agree with long-term effects, you have to, by definition, think long-term, think perspective on the people, on the data. And it's very important to remember data is people, not a separate scientific number. They're people. And so trying to get a long-term view of people and their habits and how they're, and a long-term view of markets and a long-term view of how you're different and a long-term view of your brand. So I really, first, number one, take a long view. I think I try to take that kind of broad view as well, take a broad view and not just look at what you're doing. I think one of the things that potentially can happen, a lot of the data, as I say, is instantaneous data, immediate reaction data, short-term data. And so it can be very much about what's happening to you or your consumer journey, as opposed to what's happening broadly in the world. Where people talk about brands are cultural and things, I sometimes think they over-talk culture, but they definitely exist in a context, that's for sure. We don't have to call it culture. They exist in a context of other things, people's lives, not just hermetically sealed in immediate reaction times. So I like to look broad. And then the third one, I was trying to think of three, because John Bartle always told me to think of three things. And I was trying to remember, I thought, what is the third thing I do? So I look wide, but I guess then the last one, and this comes to a different point, where I try and look deep. I unashamedly look deep, and I find myself going deeper, by which I mean, Jerry Moira once said to me, very well-known creative director, very good creative, lovely writer, beautiful writer. And he said to me, he was doing some work on the IPA diploma for me. And he said, I see what you're trying to do. And the IPA diploma was a kind of exam in the one thing the business never actually trained. They trained presentation skills, they trained how to analyze consumer data, they trained research skills, etc. But they never trained the thing we spend all our time talking about, which is brand. And when I took up the diploma or started it, I suddenly saw this huge gap. We spend all our time, you can't go into a meeting without talking about brand, but nobody is actually defining what it is or really thinking what it takes. And I do think brands take time to build, and they are built in a broader context. So I was talking about this to Jerry and saying, would you be part of it and help? And he said, "No, I see. You're trying to stop it." I'm right with you, because I often feel my creatives, people I meet, they're in Hamlet, but they're the spear carrier. But the spear carrier in Hamlet, you say, "What's this play about?" And he goes, "Oh, it's about me carrying a spear, and I have to come in at this set of point." And what he was saying is, you get so attached to your thing, your data, your job, your fragmented part of what you're trying to build, that you think the whole thing's about you. And I think that is a real danger with data. And the real thing we're doing is we're all involved in building the brand, from product innovation through to communication, through to corporate stands, to whatever. They're all building to employee practice. They're all building the brand, my relationship with you as a product. And in that context, I think brands are quite deep and significant things. I find them fascinating. One of the things that keeps me going, apart from ideas, is I like brands. They're weird. They're magical. Why do we do as people? Why do we use what we know as stories? We know what they are. We know they're fabrications. We know they're myth making, but we still enjoy it. We still want it. We still use it practically and emotionally. So, as I say, I look deep, because I think the best brands have quite a deep relationship with their customers, or understand their relationship deeply and what they offer, even if it's a shallow relationship of meerkat. They understand totally why people use that and how people use it. So so I look deep. So, for example, I realize over the years, 30 years or whatever, I have often told people to listen to Radio 4 for their insight. Don't just look at the data, because those are stories about people. They're human stories. Or read books. You know, don't read advertising books. Read, because human truth is in Ulysses as much as it's in the data point. So look long, look wide, and look deep, because what you're doing is all those things, a brand.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick, for spending time with us today, and look forward to talking to you again.